Next, we have Barbara Heinzen of Clean Air Coalition of Greater Ravenna Coemans. Barbara Heinzen works with companies and communities in Africa, Asia, and Latin America to develop long-term strategic thinking. After 30 years in central London, she started a new Barbets Duet experimental site along the Hudson River. In 2017, she co-founded the Clean Air Coalition of Greater Ravenna Coemans. Barbara, you are now able to share your screen.
So for those of you in the Capital Region who have no idea where Coemans is or how to pronounce it, this is a small hamlet on the river, about 15 miles south of Albany. The hamlet itself has maybe 800 people, but the town of Coemans, which goes up into the escarpment, has 8,000 people more or less. And we're 30 minutes, 23 miles away from the Air Justice Lab and 135 miles away from New York. But the waterfront is a huge resource. And as you can see, this is a pretty untouched area. To the left of the east bank, on the east side of the river, that's Schodack Island, which is a state park. The town is actually in two parts. On the east of the Red Line, that's where most of the industry takes place and where most of the industrial zoning takes place. The open spaces are to the west of that line. And this is also a social divide, and it gets reflected in town politics in a big way. So all these gray areas are industrialized. This light gray area is the village of Ravenna, and down here on the river is where the hamlet is. This pink is newly industrialized. This black is also industrialized. That light blue is now a wildlife management zone owned by the DEC. This is an aerial view of the industrial development immediately around Ravenna and Coemans. This is the first industrial development that came in the 1960s. It was a cement plant bought originally by Atlantic Cement. This is the quarry to the west. And this is a very huge operation. And this tiny little spot here is where they built the middle and high school, because the cement company gave them the land to do that, and they thought, what a great opportunity. So that was all in the 1960s. In 2006, the Port of Coemans bought an old brickyard on the river and turned it into an operation for managing construction and demolition debris. And although half the site had been converted to woodland, that was then quickly built over. And in 2013, the owner of the Port of Coemans, Carver Laraway, bought another 400 acres along the Coemans Creek and applied to have that land, which was agricultural and residential land, have it rezoned for heavy industry. I moved here in 2011, and I started getting involved in the fight to stop that rezoning. As you can see, we failed to stop it at all. In 2017, we got news through Judith Enck that there is a proposal to burn a third of Connecticut's waste at the cement plant. They're going to make a decision by the end of the year, and we heard about this in early December. We organized a very quick campaign to call a halt to this and persuade Connecticut not to choose the option of burning their waste here in Ravenna. And that's partly because when you burn waste, as we've heard from Bob, you don't know what's coming out of that burning. You don't know what's in that smokestack. It could be anything. People put all sorts of rubbish in their waste. So we didn't want it. We didn't want the air pollution from it. And that's when the Clean Air Coalition began. In 2023, Carver Laraway continued his industrial ambitions, and he proposed building a wind power project on 106 acres of open land to the north of him, which was also zoned for agriculture and residential use. That proposal has failed for the moment. We think it could well come back. And in 2025-26, the Port of Coemans got a $17 million grant from Advance Albany Alliance. And that was a grant to put up an electricity substation at the Port of Coemans. But nobody knows why we need a substation, which will ultimately cost more than $100 million, or what it's going to be doing. If it's to support industry, where will the industry go? as best we can tell, any new industry can only go on residential and agricultural land, or land that's now in woodland and fairly undeveloped. So the industry around us, to my mind, has had a huge environmental impact, and it has also potentially had a very serious health impact. It's also had a political impact because Queens is a very small population. A lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on in town government. And you have a town supervisor who is either owned by industry and does what they want, or one who tries to slow down industrial development and gets a lot of opposition from all quarters. It's also a very unequal fight. Holcim was the name of the cement plant until about a year ago, and now it's called Amrise. There's been some corporate fiddle going on there, and it's a new company, but it's still the same old plant, still doing the same old stuff. And when it was with Holcim, it was almost $30 billion of revenue in 2023. The Carver companies, who own the Port of Queens, are the smallest of the companies that we're dealing with here. They only have revenue of about $140 million, and they moved in 2006, as I said. And recently, they've had a lot of support from Advance Albany County Alliance, who are pushing industrial development in Queens in a big way. Carver companies, at a certain point in 2024, sold their sand and gravel business to Heidelberg Materials, and that business takes stone and rock from the cement quarry and trucks it to the port or down the local roads for use wherever it's needed. With all these different industrial activities around us, we have industrial sources of pollution coming from many directions. The Port of Queens C&D operation is pretty polluting. We have a lot of heavy trucks on local roads, particularly those coming from the quarry and moving to the port. People are reporting 200 or 300 trucks a day on Ravenna Main Street, Queens, Church Street, and on a street coming straight out of the quarry. The Port of Queens also bought 50 acres of untouched riverside property and immediately clear-cut the forest that was there, and now they're trying to sell it. We don't know why they bought it, we don't know why they're selling it, and we don't know why they cut it, but that reduced forest cover has an impact on air quality and environmental quality. Here on the lower left-hand side, we have Geocycle, which is the business that said they wanted to burn waste in the cement plant. The cement plant at the time was owned by Lafarge, and they said, nothing to do with us, nothing to do with us. In fact, Geocycle is wholly owned by Holcim, and the ambition of the cement plant is to burn waste as fuel in their cement operations, saying it will reduce CO2 and help to slow down air pollution that causes climate change. They don't mention the other types of pollution that are caused by burning waste in a cement plant, which is not equipped to handle that kind of burning. So we have a lot of these activities. Actually, a lot of our winds come from the northwest, and they go straight from these activities into Ravenna and the hamlet of Queens. The Clean Air Coalition worked very hard in 2020 and got a clean air law passed in Queens that was very strong. And we also worked in 2019 to pass a clean air law in Albany County. We also have another neighbor in Selkirk called Sabic, which is a petrochemical company, I believe. So we're surrounded by pollution, and Norlight's too far away, but we're part of that system. Diana Abity, who's a member of the Clean Air Coalition, put together these figures and said that the RCS, the Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk area, had total asthma hospitalizations that were in the highest quartile, 6.3 and over per 10,000. And we also had more hospitalizations for asthma. So this, I suspect, is due to industrial pollution, but we can't necessarily track it directly to that. As has been noted elsewhere, that's a more complicated kind of research project to put together. But we've also seen excess respiratory cancers in this region. In Queens, we had 30 respiratory cancers between 2013 and 2017. That's 1.7 times greater than expected. Ravenna had greater than expected cancers, respiratory cancers, and New Baltimore, which is where I live, which is south of on the river, that also had higher than expected respiratory cancers. Now, all of these, this time period, 2013 to 2017, measures the air pollution before the cement plant was modernized. Its modernized form opened in 2017. I'm told it still has problems. There's still pollution coming out. It's much better than it was, but we don't have more up-to-date figures than these here. What we do have is a larger worry, because the Port of Queens, I suspect, was going to be the port that would have brought the Connecticut waste into Queens and sent it over to the cement plant, because they're effectively neighbors. And we also have Wheelabrator and Hudson Falls. People are opposing that. We have the opposition to Norlite. We have the opposition to the Dunn landfill. All of these things need to be opposed. But our worry in Queens is that if all those things close down, where will that waste go? It could well come to Queens, and it could well go into the cement plant. And it could go to a proposed transfer station. So we feel very vulnerable to what could happen to waste. And this is why the zero waste movements in New York are extremely important. What happened in Queens was that after we had a town supervisor who supported a clean air law, we then had a new town supervisor who used to work at the Port of Queens. And during COVID, he revised all the local laws, the solid waste law, the clean air law, and the comprehensive plan, to make it much easier to turn Queens into a waste management site, and with links to burning in the cement plant. So this is our worry. It's a bit speculative, but that's what we are worried about. In 2013, when we were debating the rezoning for the industrial park, one of the arguments in favor of the industrial park was that this is the last chance for the town to grow, as if the only way to grow is by having more dirty industry. Carver Laraway is the man standing in this photograph at a town meeting, and he referred to people like myself as a bunch of gripers bitching at the back. He was not very keen on our opposition. The Port of Queens does have a very good PR company, which makes a lot of noise about how they contributed to the building of the Tappan Zee Bridge, contributed to building the Willits Avenue Bridge, and has been involved in a bit of assembly work for wind projects. I think this is lipstick on a pig, because the major business is in waste management and road building, materials, and salt. What's also interesting is that this is part of a long quarrel. There were people who were opposing the cement plant coming in the 1960s. So you have a division in town between those who say industrial development is when we had it good, and those who say, why are you learning? Why are you ruining our small town and our rural character? So it's a long, long argument. And those who oppose it say, would you please slow down and consult? This was about the rezoning for industry. And this is an historic town. It started in the late 1600s. That house on the lower right is the Quemens House, built by Barrett Quemens family, who started this, who were the first Europeans to settle here. We have protected species opposite Skodak Park. And this area of the Hudson River is a freshwater tidal ecosystem, which is globally rare. And we're treating it like an expendable resource. The town has been let to go, the Quemens Hamlet in particular, has been let run down for many years because it seemed to suit the argument that it's better for industry if we don't have people who can oppose what we're doing. So here we are, we have something at stake. The industries want to expand, they want to make a good living. And people who are worried about the air quality, about the environment, they're also worried about the impact of these industries. So being part of the Clean Air, the Air Justice Lab, and getting air monitors established and put up in Ravenna and Quemens and surrounding areas like Selkirk will be very, very helpful to us in making the case, particularly to people who live here, that maybe unfettered industrial expansion is not what we want in this little town. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.